Bonjour et bienvenue à cette conférence ministérielle.
Good afternoon and welcome to this ministerial conference on the subject of mobility, which, as you know, is at the heart of the European project. I'm your coordinator, and this conference is broadcast live in the 27 member states and interpreted simultaneously in 6 languages. If you look at the icon on your screens, you can select the language. You need to note that sign language is also offered here at the Sorbonne. I am happy to be here in the company of Mr. Jean-Michel Blanquer, the French Minister for National Education, and who is a president of the European Union Council for Education, Youth and Sports here in Paris at the Sorbonne, a very emblematic site for education of international renown. So thank you very much for being here with us. Mr. Minister, this conference is entitled Let's Get Moving. It is the first under the French presidency for education, and this in this European year for youth and the celebration of the 35-year anniversary of the Erasmus Program. What do you expect, Mr. Minister? Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be able to be with you for this meeting under the presidency of the Republic of France. I'd like to greet the ministers present here. In fact, Simon Harris, Lina Anderson-Kirchbaum, and Maria Gabriel, the European Commissioner, the European Member of Parliament Sabine Verheyen, President of the Culture and Education Commission, Václav Velkovsky, Vice Minister of Education. And for all of the members of the European Union, all of those following us here today, we are here to celebrate mobility. Mobility is something which is extremely concrete. It's what makes of us Europeans. And as you have recalled, we are here at the Sorbonne in France, a Sorbonne which is well known in France, in Europe, and in the world. It is one of the first universities created in the world. It is a site where President Macron, who is totally European, made the Sorbonne Declaration in 2017. We can recall here a number of objectives which are going to start being attained here, and hopefully thanks to the work that we are doing here. First of all, because he emitted the idea that all young Europeans should speak 2 languages, and this involves all countries. And he also spoke of mobility and the hope that Erasmus could be doubled. And this has been attained today with the new European Commission and Parliament. It's not just a question of doubling the budget, but also having Erasmus evolve for the benefit of its public. And today we can talk of the program Erasmus Plus and the European Corps, the European Solidarity Corps. Then there are a number of bilateral initiatives which support this European mobility. This meeting is both physical and digital. For good and bad reasons, we've developed virtual meetings. We are here to speak of the European education space, which is fundamental. It is a group for higher education, and what's important to do today is to show that at high school level, but even at the secondary level and even beyond, there is a European space for education. We will meet with you throughout this event, but at this moment, we're going to look at a video which will, in fact, bear testimony to young Europeans who have opted for mobility. We've had a lot of contributions from the different countries, and we would like to thank all of you for these videos. Unfortunately, we can't show them all here today, but you can see them on the conference's website. So let's look at those who dare to be mobile. Let's get moving.
J'ai décidé de partir pour gagner de l'expérience dans l'enseignement du français dans un pays étranger, car je souhaiterais en faire mon métier. Grâce à cette mobilité, j'ai énormément appris sur moi-même et j'ai également beaucoup progressé en allemand. J'ai osé la mobilité.
Hi, my name is Katerina Rendel-Dominis, and what my mobility meant to me was finding myself and finding the profession that I love. So let's get moving.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from Zagreb and I'm a volunteer at Erasmus Student Network Croatia. I dare to be mobile to gain intercultural competence, friends from many different countries and more than just knowledge. So, let's get moving!
Bonjour, je suis Gloria Lucas, je viens de La Réunion. La mobilité représente pour moi l'ouverture sur le monde et l'autonomie. J'ai choisi de partir à l'étranger car je suis une passionnée des voyages et j'ai toujours aimé partager ma culture. J'ai osé la mobilité.
Salut, je suis Hilaria, assistante de langue italienne en France. Pour moi, mobilité représente un enrichissement personnel. Chaque jour, j'apprends quelque chose de nouveau. J'ai décidé de partir à l'étranger pour me sentir citoyenne du monde. J'ai osé la mobilité.
Je suis Aline, assistante de langue française à Vienne en Autriche. Je suis partie pour une expérience linguistique, personnelle et culturelle dans un pays germanophone. J'ai osé la mobilité.
On a osé la mobilité! Hola, soy Cristina de Málaga. El año pasado me fui de Erasmus a Malta para terminar las prácticas de mi grado superior y fue una experiencia inolvidable. Estoy muy agradecida por ello porque me ayudó a crecer tanto personalmente como profesionalmente. Además estoy muy contenta porque Europa se mueve.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Kylian, je suis élève au collège Écolibère en Vendée. Pour moi, la mobilité Erasmus cette année sera en Pologne. Ce sera la première fois que je partirai à l'étranger. Cette option me permettra aussi d'apprendre de nouvelles choses sur l'Union européenne et de plus parler anglais. Let's get moving!
Voilà, donc nous allons parler de la
we are going to speak of mobility in the workplace, something which is extremely important, and this, in fact, concerns our subject. Training and vocational education are the second biggest budget of the Erasmus program. And during this roundtable session, we propose seeing how things are taking place very practically. So we have the triptych of mobility with vocational education, the professor, the teacher, and the company. The professor is Patrick Tardy. He teaches at the Claude Nougaro Polyvalent Lycée at Caussade near Toulouse in the south of France. He coordinates European projects now for more than 20 years, and he has received the Erasmus Plus Innovative Teaching Award. We have a student, Jade Ravetrano, a past student of Mr. Tardy at the Nougaro High School, and the company represented by Enrique Masta, the director of Masili Iberica Ibremal in Spain. And we have, in fact, political decision makers. We have Simon Harris, in fact, the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation, and Science on a remote basis. Thank you for being with us. And we, of course, have Jean-Michel Blanquer. So we're going to immediately start with a video example coming from the Normandy academic region. Let's look at it now.
Alors la mobilité est très importante parce que nous avons des hôteliers donc, qui vont être amenés, on l'espère, à voyager. Ce sont des élèves qui n'ont pas forcément l'habitude de sortir beaucoup de leur environnement proche. Donc ça va être pour eux l'occasion de découvrir d'autres façons de travailler, une autre culture, une autre langue.
The video is subtitled in English.
Moi, un stage en cuisine.
Et moi je pars en Allemagne.
Je pars en Norvège.
Ce qui m'a donné envie de partir, c'est la curiosité.
L'envie d'apprendre. L'envie de voyager, de faire de nouvelles découvertes, de sortir un peu de la France et voyager dans l'Europe.
Pour avoir une ouverture d'esprit et c'est enrichissant, quoi. C'est la première fois que je pars à l'étranger, donc j'ai peur de ne pas avoir mes marques, je vais pas avoir de repères. C'est vrai que je stresse beaucoup. J'appréhende un peu de partir, mais après, je me dis c'est l'aventure et puis de quoi je suis capable, quoi. Moi, je dirais, malgré les appréhensions et tout ça, qu'il faut foncer, qu'il faut y aller, parce que c'est une chance qu'on a que... il n'y a pas d'autres personnes non plus qui ont la chance d'aller à l'étranger, donc faut prendre son courage à deux mains.
Ouais, je le conseillerais parce que c'est un truc qu'on ne peut pas vivre tous les jours ou tout le monde ne peut pas avoir.
Ça nous amène plusieurs choses, la langue, tout ce qui est culturel, éducatif.
Lance-toi, tout simplement. Ça peut être que bénéfique, ça nous apporte que du plus.
Voilà quelques.
So, those were some beautiful examples, I think, of mobility, vocational mobility. I'd like to turn to you, Mr. Darty, the professor, and maybe you can say a few words about the importance of this mobility for young people. You just received the European Award for Innovative Teaching. Could you present this briefly? Yes, the Eurolycée Pro is in fact 5 establishments. 3 are in the rural area, 2 in Toulouse, and this was created to create greater visibility for these institutions. The difficulties in having a European visibility. And the second aspect is to bring together skills to be more effective with the experience and the passing years. We have more and more demands. If I understand you correctly, you are the ambassador of this mobility. Why do you organize this? And quite practically speaking, what does this offer the student? Well, in fact, our project was to focus on those students who had the greatest difficulties. They can be different types of difficulties. You have students who are not oriented in the direction that they would like to study, some who have difficulties, learning difficulties, those who are failing at school, who have other problems like absenteeism, generally problems with, risking dropping out of school. And so with these issues, we are convinced that mobility could perhaps create a kind of welcome shock to these young people because of the challenges they're going to face. It's going to force them to assert themselves, adapt in a context that they don't know. And so they're going to be really challenged and hopefully with consequences which will be much more positive, as was explained in the video by the students. Yes. So, Jade, you went to Austria, and what did this mobility bring you from a personal point of view? And what was most surprising for you? Well, I went to Austria. My language was German, but I went there to learn English. And it's a country where people speak English very well. And so it was very enriching for me, but also for the people with whom I was working. What I was really surprised was the culture of respect there. There, in fact, no one crosses the road outside of the crosswalks or if the sign is red. Also, the organization was taken in hand by the school, my high school, and this allowed me to acquire working experience, gain confidence in myself. Because I wasn't at home, I had to speak a foreign language. At the beginning, it was very difficult, but things got better as I went, and I'm very happy to have participated. So you were mobile and you learned English and German in Austria, is that right? Yes. Now, can you identify with the videos, the testimony you saw here? Did you feel the same things? Yes, I saw some people who had the same experience as I had. I'm someone who's quite stressed. Wait, we can't see it. Well, thank you. I must say that I'm someone quite stressed and anxious, and the fact that I went to Austria, I learned how to channel my stress because I didn't have a choice. And if I can give anyone a word of advice, that is, if you have the opportunity, then go for it. It is all pure benefit. Thank you. Now we'll move on to Spain, to Spanish. Mr. Mastral, I know that you regularly receive young young students for internships in your company. What is your motivation for welcoming them here? Well, before answering, I would like to say that European society, through the Minister for Education and the different high schools, for example, high schools like the Paul Claude Nougaro High School, I have done considerable work to push young people to offer them quality training to guarantee their future. And to answer your question, I would say that the motivation of our company to welcome these young people is dual. In fact, first of all, we feel we have a moral responsibility, a social responsibility to society to give back to society what the European society has done for us. And this through the integration of young people in our society, and this is the way we can return what we have obtained. So it's also a operational motivation because companies need staff, need to recruit, and we need people to evolve in the company, to develop and maintain our company. For example, the digitalization of the company, all of the digitalization to meet future challenges that we will face. And this can help us enhance the professional level of our employees. And mobility is one of the best ways of doing this because the companies, the world of business allows us to come closer to the educational world. And what are the benefits? What are the benefits do such programs offer young people? And how can you share your vision with regards to this experience of mobility? The young people arrive with incredible motivation. When they arrive in our company, they have a way of thinking. They have certain technological knowledge, which enables us to deal with day-to-day problems. But I think that diversity is probably one of the more important things when the employees see these young people in their early 20s who are also involved in this mobility, who have the courage to move. Well, for our employees, well, they see that that society is moving, is open, and I think that Jade has shown how this has enabled her to develop self-confidence, and I agree with that. I think that this first professional experience in a foreign environment, in a new culture, in a new language, well, is going to increase the person's confidence and help them for the future.
Hello in Gaelic. Would you like to offer us your view of Erasmus mobilities and the vocational and educational sectors? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex, and it's great to join you virtually today. And before I just answer that question, I just want to sincerely thank my colleague, Minister Blanquer, and all his team for organising and convening this very worthwhile conference on this important topic today. And of course, I would also like to take the opportunity to note that it is 35 years ago that a French person, Jacques Delors, and an Irish person, Peter Sutherland, came together as commissioner and as president of the commission to launch the Erasmus program. So Ireland and France's links together in Erasmus go right back to the very foundation of this transformational program. Also, for many, many Irish students, France is indeed the first destination of choice. And again, I think that shows the very close connections between Irish and French institutions. And this relationship was further deepened when the French president, Monsieur Macron, visited Ireland late last year. And I was delighted to have the opportunity to welcome him to Trinity College in Dublin. I also hope, Jean-Michel, that you and I will finally be able to sit down together and sign in the very near future a letter of intent to promote further staff and vocational education student exchanges between our vocational education and training institutions. And I know we're both very committed to that indeed. Turning directly to the question, I am Ireland's Minister with responsibility for further and higher education, and yet when I meet both students and parents in Ireland, I do think that the Erasmus mobility can all too often be perceived to be linked just to higher education. And I'm not sure if this is common experiences in other member states, but I really want to take concrete steps to change that perception. So last year, our Irish National Agency for Erasmus in Vocational Education and Training, called Largus, published a report, and that report was specifically focused on work placements for Irish students. The study was called "It Made Me Hungry for More," a great title, I believe, and it found that 57% of students on mobilities had significant improvements in their personal and their professional skills while abroad, and crucially felt at ease working abroad. The experience also helped to improve their grades at home, as well as making them more attractive to prospective employers. Others in the survey also mentioned that it encouraged them to pursue their discipline to higher education, so to make that transition from further education, from vocational education to university education. So there may indeed be a number of issues feeding into the perception that can sometimes exist in the public mind that Erasmus is mainly for or just for higher education. And this is linked, I think, to the relative value and standing that Irish society attaches to vocational education. So this is a key area of focus in terms of reform for me, and one of our departmental priorities now is to focus on an integrated third-level education system. For the very first time this year, Irish second-level students, school students, will be able to see the full spectrum of options at third level during the application process, rather than a siloed approach that I think has existed in the past. I'm currently travelling to schools right across our country, talking to students about all of their options, not just their higher education options, including vocational education, training, and apprenticeships. And we're now investing much, much more in the buildings, the facilities, the physical infrastructure within our vocational educational campuses, and ensuring that staff and students within those colleges are directly linked into the dialogues and the processes that we have in place at a national level. So Erasmus has been an overwhelming success. I think the next big area for focus now is really prioritising the vocational education and training opportunities that there are for mobility exchanges across the European Union. Thank you very much.
I think one of the unique features of the Irish education system is the transition year program, if I've understood. Could you tell us a little bit more about this? I think it's quite interesting for the details. And do you feel that it helps young people as they explore Erasmus opportunities?
Yes, indeed. Our transition year is part of senior cycle in post-primary education in Ireland. And I can take you through some of the core aspects of the programme. It's optional for schools and indeed optional for students. But we do now see the vast majority of Irish students participating in that year-long programme. The programme comes immediately after the first state exam, which we call the Junior Certificate Programme, and it offers a student an opportunity to pursue an alternative context to learn. While there are guides to programme design, each school has the flexibility to develop a programme that suits their needs and their context as well. So for example, the transition year programme allows students to pursue project work such as a young scientist exhibition, stage a musical or a play, and gain work experiences in businesses in the local community or in the charity or non-governmental sector. It can also be used crucially to learn an additional language, a European language, or to travel abroad. And I was very struck by a comment from a student who experienced our transition year programme. She said it is a chance for self-development, and it helps you build your confidence to do things you would not ordinarily do. She said, I worked and learned things that were relevant to me and to the world when I leave school. I think that's an important endorsement, but I do think the same can also be said of Erasmus. This is not just about the importance of vocational education or higher education. It's about the individual student, the individual learner, learning more about him or herself, being in a different setting, having to engage with new peers, having to navigate the culture and the practices of a different country. And in some respects, developing those, and I don't like that phrase, soft skills, are often skills that cannot be taught in the classroom, but are really important in the modern world and also really important in the context of our European project. Having said that, I'd very much like to see more Irish vocational and higher education students, including apprentices, build on their transition year experiences by pursuing the Erasmus mobility. Ireland currently takes about twice as many Erasmus students into our country than Irish students who head out abroad. And while there are a number of factors for this, including Brexit, I do hope and want to see Ireland achieve a much better balance of student flows with the prospect of increased Erasmus funding for the coming years.
Thank you very much indeed for that very interesting experience from Ireland. Thank you, Minister. Monsieur le Ministre, vous dites souvent que l'enseignement et la formation professionnelle...
Now you say that education, vocational training are a bit in the vanguard and that we should have a sort of vocational Harvard. Well, we have seen on the basis of what we heard from Mr. Tardy, from Simon Harris at the present moment, that vocational training, in fact, benefits from mobility. So, in fact, instead of talking about vocational Harvard, I should have said a Sorbonne for vocational training, because it deserves such a high-level education. Now, you know, it's important to have in one place sports equipment, laboratories, vocational education, higher education, a place where people, you know, want to go and very open to the international sphere. This is why in France we have set up a sort of campus that are vocational Harvards, and each is focusing on renewable energy, electric vehicles. Often it's close to an industrial pole, and we would like to have a European dimension added and sometimes an international dimension. We've often done it on a bilateral basis, Franco-German, Franco-Italian, Franco-Spanish, soon Franco-Irish, as Simon mentioned, and it's a very good thing. And it can be bilateral, it can be multilateral. This is what we can develop now. And now to encourage this, we have created for vocational lycée a possibility of European mobility. So when you have a vocational school and you go to another vocational school in another country, you get a grade that will be taken into account in your degree. We already have 9,000 pupils that have benefited from this. And so this is something we want to develop even more. Vocational education should really be use the state-of-the-art education. So we'll soon have twinnings around Europe. Now, what is the recognition system for this vocational education in France? Well, there are, in fact, different types of recognition, and we would like to have the same references. You know, in the vocational sphere, there are different qualifications, and it would be good that, you know, whether we're talking about vocational training or apprenticeship, it would be good to have a European system to recognize this. So thank you very much. And now we are going to talk about a more inclusive mobility, and we will turn to Antonio Vikovic, a young Croatian in Latvia, in fact, within the framework of Erasmus Plus, and the program is for 50 young people from 17 countries.
Ja sam osoba sa štećenim vidom, ali to me nije spriječilo da se na kraju prijavim na program Erasmus.
A koliko mi znamo, bio si u glavnom gradu Latvije, Rigi, jel tako?
To je bilo 2013. Dobio sam mail od našeg nacionalnog koordinatora Centra Up to Date. Prvo sam mislio šta, hoću, neću, bi, ne bi. A onda su meni doma rekli, ajde odi, vidi svijeta malo, druži se s ekipom. Bila je, naravno da je bila malo frka, prvi put tak nešto, ne znam ljude, doću tamo, uopće ne znam i di ću doći tamo, mislim znam da ću doći u Rigu, i to sve, ali ne znam šta će tamo biti, kako će to izgledati, hrpa ljudi koje ne znam, isto niko ne vidi, šta će to biti. Bilo je svega, nečeg se sjećamo, nečeg se ne sjećamo i tako. A na kraju je čak i bilo dobro, makar šta čak, bilo je odlično, bilo je super. Da nije bilo Erasmusa, vjerojatno ne bi bio toliko otvoren i opušten, ne bi se vjerojatno ni toliko družio sa prijateljima, ne bi stekao i te neke na kraju krajeva socijalne vještine, a i neke IT vještine koje sam na tom kampu stekao. Pozivam svu mladu ekipu da se prijave na projekte koje nudi Erasmus ili Erasmus+, jer neće sigurno požaliti. To je to.
Voilà un très bel exemple.
A very nice example we have just seen, showing that mobility is really an opportunity that should be available for everyone, even for those who might think that it's not for them. But to talk about this more inclusive mobility, more solidarity, we will turn to, well, we have Simon Harris, who is still with us, and also the European Commissioner, Maria Gabriel, in charge of innovation, research, culture, education, and youth. And we will also see Mrs. Sabine Verheyen on a video, European MP, President of the Commission on Culture and Education. She is at the present time in Strasbourg, but she will be on video with us. And next to me, the French Secretary of State responsible for youth and commitment, Sarah Lahiri, as well as Nazebaya Amoudi Melanin, a young Spanish voluntary in the European Solidarity Corps, who is in France for a mission. But first of all, let me turn to Simon.
Ireland is well known for its inclusion system, particularly for the young, for the integration of pupils with disabilities. Reflecting on the contributions that we've seen so far, how do you see the alignment of inclusion and Erasmus mobilities?
Thank you very much. Ireland is absolutely committed, as I know we are across the European Union, to inclusive practice when it comes to education, starting from early years education right through to higher education and to our research sector. And promoting inclusive practice remains at the heart of our policies, because we want all students, all people, to be able to reach their personal and professional potential. And just to share a few examples with you this afternoon, we have a fund for students with disabilities, and this aims to support students with a range of conditions and disabilities, including sensory and physical disabilities, specific learning difficulties such as dyslexia, autism, mental health conditions, and indeed ongoing chronic illness. Last year, we were in a position to provide additional expenditure to fund initiatives involving 23 of our higher education institutions across Ireland. And these are broad and aimed at improving access to higher education for people with a disability. And that could involve improving a physical college campus or indeed assisting staff with training and development. Among the projects are a number very close to my heart, a number of projects for students with autism, including the establishment of autism-friendly rooms across 9 different campuses, which I had the honour of visiting some of them. Also, the development of assistive technology, including for students with disability, and an app to help students with visual or hearing impairment navigate their way around the college campus, and specialist assistance for students who are deaf. In the year 2019-2020, Just over 12% of our new entrant students to higher education institutions were registered with additional learning needs. And we have put in place, when it comes to Erasmus, a top-up payment to support those students with a disability or additional needs who wish to avail of Erasmus mobility. And in 2020-2021, 11% of Erasmus mobilities from Ireland are in receipt of this. In relation to students from disadvantaged backgrounds, some areas of socioeconomic disadvantage, achieving equity of access to higher education has to be rooted in the principles of equality and social inclusion. Inclusion is, of course, a stated European Union priority in, for example, the European Pillar of Social Rights. And we're taking specific steps here to ensure that third-level education has the power to transform lives, to lift people out of a cycle of poverty, and to break down cycles of disadvantage. Access to any type of third-level education should be available to all individuals, independent of their socio-economic background, their ethnicity, their gender, their geographical location, disability, or other circumstances. Colleagues in my own department now are working on developing a new national access plan to span the next 5 years, and I look forward to publishing this exciting, ambitious plan this year. We hope to have a more student-centred plan that drives that strategic goal of inclusion. And a continued focus of ours will be specific measures for underrepresented groups, including when it comes to the entire area of mobility. As I look at the transformative experiences of students when it comes to the Erasmus Program, and I think again of Jacques Delors and Peter Sunderland, and they would surely marvel at the extent of credibility and innovation underpinning their original vision. And we need, all of us in leadership positions today, must do everything that we possibly can to do justice to that vision and to ensure that it is as inclusive as possible.
Okay, you are also in charge of the Erasmus Plus program in Ireland. Commissioner Gabrielle will tell us more about this. But just to finish, seen from Ireland, what would be your message for this new Erasmus Plus program?
Well, thank you. It's lovely to see virtually the Commissioner, my friend Maria Gabrielle, and I look forward to seeing you in person again soon, and look forward indeed for spending time in Ireland and showing you all the benefits of the European Union funding that your directorate are investing. I'm delighted, genuinely delighted and proud that the European Commission has allocated over 28 billion euro to the new Erasmus Plus programme, and particularly pleased to see that underpinning that Erasmus Plus programme are the themes of inclusivity and flexibility. And I know there are themes that we're very much touching on today in this conference, and I want to assure all of you, and I want to assure Commissioner Gabrielle of the support of Ireland's two national agencies to deliver those ambitious goals of Erasmus Plus. And if I can make perhaps a plea for an area that I think we all need to require specific attention to, it's to ensure that where mobilities are facilitated, particularly in the context of students with additional needs, that it's vital that the receiving organisations can access resources to support students' mobility. And at a national level and indeed at a European level, I know we will continue to pursue that goal.
Thank you very much indeed. Minister, Madame la Commissaire, vous venez de l'entendre, effectivement, le ministre irlandais nous dire...
So, Madam Commissioner, you've heard the importance of inclusion in Ireland. At the level of Europe, you drive the Erasmus Plus program. What could you say to those who think that this program is not for them? Well, first of all,
thank you very much. First of all, let me say good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be able to meet the Minister, Simon Harris, here with regards to these subjects which are so important for education and our youth. And I would also like to greet the Secretary of State, Sarah El Haïry. I think that we still have many things to do, and we have with this conference the possibility of showing the concrete work we are doing. I would like to share a simple message with those who perhaps are not yet aware of the possibilities offered by Erasmus Plus. It's not by chance that we have been able to double the budget, 28 billion euros compared to the 14 billion euros. This means for me 2 times as many opportunities. And if we have given possibilities to 10 million citizens to have the experience with Erasmus Plus, we're changing gears, we're shifting gears, and we will offer this to twice as many European citizens with the new Erasmus Plus program. And I know, as was said by Minister Harris, let me say in one sentence the symbol which the Erasmus Plus symbolizes, because the indicators show that that the European citizens feel that Erasmus Plus is one of the three positive aspects of European construction, behind the free movement of individuals and peace in Europe. And I'd like to send a message to those who have not yet participated in the program, who think that they don't have enough chances of doing so. No, chance is not the question. The program is more inclusive at all levels, at all ages, at all steps of our lives. It is now possible to take advantage and benefit from Erasmus Plus. This is extremely important. We obviously will continue to work with the different organizations to make these participation in these programs known. In addition to that, the program is perhaps more digital in its organization, but also with the pandemic, you need to know that the digital tools can also help us reach out to people who have not had the possibility of coming here. The third point is that we would like to have more people involved, committed to the fight against climate change, the green programs. You know that here again, with financial incentives, they can participate so as to use more sustainable modes of transportation, like the trains. And you know that there's an EU initiative to offer young people train tickets in Europe. And this, we will be distributing some 60,000 tickets, which means that 60,000 young people will be able to benefit from this experience. And finally, I would like to say that the program contributes to our common values, to democratic participation. And this is something that we need to reinforce. And this is why we have a new type of mobility, mobility for young people and participation of young people. And this obviously is going to enhance the number of youth exchanges. More than 900,000 young Europeans have participated in this in the past. So my message is simple. The Erasmus Plus program is accessible to everyone. There are difficulties to ensure that this is known, the information is disseminated everywhere, but it's important that each and everyone try to participate and fulfill themselves both personally and professionally. Thank you, Commissioner. And we are here at the Sorbonne, and it's a message that comes across very well. We spoke of Erasmus Plus and Nazebaya. This is a program that you know well because you have benefited from it. But I think that today you are familiar with another European program, which is also headed by Commissioner Gabriel, and this is the European Solidarity Corps. For those of you who are not familiar with it, the European Solidarity Corps is one which allows for an experience in mobility and commitment for young people from 18 to 30 years of age, and they can work in various fields like health, working with refugees, the underprivileged, etc. So you are involved in a mission in France. Can you tell us about your mission here? I am presently part of a mission at the Regional Federation of the Maison de la Culture in Île-de-France. This is an association which is recognized as a popular education institution. Its objective is the development and emancipation at both the individual and collective level of all people. And within this concept, two main missions at the Federation were, first of all, animation and training and meetings for the French volunteers who are carrying out this, in fact, civil service work and working with the network of the Federation. Another of the mission is to work in training, for example, to fight hate speeches and xenophobia on the social networks, to work against disinformation and fake news. So I'm precisely involved in organizing activities on this subject in the associations and the establishment to promote international understanding. What have you learned from this experience, from this commitment and this solidarity? And what advice would you give to those who are wanting to go today? Well, I would say that thanks to this volunteer work, I have the impression I know myself better. I've discovered hidden resources in myself. And I think that for me, it's a new starting point to determine how I can evolve, how I can become a better person, how can I improve myself and improve the life of others. And this volunteer work, in fact, at the Maison des Jeunes et de la Culture has enabled me to discover that I like working in this social animation work. And I really appreciated this period, this mission, and I now would like to orient my life towards that type of activity. As far as any words of advice I'd like to give to others, let me say that if I was to, I would tell the person, if I was to tell myself what to do, I would say before my actual experience here, I would say that all of this all this volunteer work, you will be accompanied by the host structure. You will be welcomed. You should not be afraid of the unknown. You need to keep an open mind, and you need to welcome, to embrace this experience with a great deal of motivation, the desire to learn, the desire to work. You need to give as much of yourself as possible, and you will have a wonderful experience. I would like to say that to participate in this volunteer work in the field of solidarity is something that I would recommend to all young people. You won't regret the experience. And I think that everyone should dare to start so as to help build a new society, a better one. Now, how can young people have this solidarity action both in their country and internationally? Well, I think that I think that this experience is real, and this youth expresses hope for Europe because it's more involved, more participatory, more committed. And I think this is what you get from this testimony. There are different types of mobility, different types of commitment, so that everyone can find within themselves the most sincere investment they can make. If you're invested in the defense of the planet, for climate change, then you need to have associations which are willing to welcome these young people, whether it's an institution, European institution, organization, Erasmus Plus. Just as Commissioner Maria Gabriel has said, it's not so much the institution, but it's the fact of sharing common belonging, a common destiny to feel useful. And obviously, we can accompany them in terms of language learning, mobility, help those who have disabilities. Maybe we need to seek out those young people who are not used to getting into higher education institutions or participating in programs. You know, it's true that people for who it's easier to reach this type of program when you have access to an office in a university which organizes such exchanges. It's more difficult when you aren't in this situation. I think that, as Commissioner Gabriel has said, and Mr. Harris, it's important that each young person have a possibility of finding his commitment. I know that the President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, has the will to create that European civil service. civil service, and how does that commitment contribute to the construction and the strengthening of the concept of European citizenship? You know that citizenship is a balance between rights and duties. Fundamentally, that's what it is. When you build that citizenship, you have key moments. You have to nourish the feeling of belonging. You have to master historical reference points, meet young people, young, older people, people who share certain values. As Commissioner Gabriel has said, why are we doing this? Well, it's because Europe has common values, democratic values, the state of law, values which need to be defended. The project, the spirit of the European civil service would be first and foremost to have some kind of commitment, mobility of 6 months for the under 25 years of age, which could obviously work in cooperation with other existing programs. We have the National Universal Service, the International Volunteer Work in Companies, there's the European Solidarity Corps. There's so many entities, institutions possible. The European Civil Service, well, and this is what we're doing with the Commissioner, will have to be based on existing programs. Today, 9 member states already have some kind of civil service for young people. There's also the European Voluntary Corps, which is a project. And here, no matter what the young person's situation is in relation to this state, to his schooling, his professional path. It's important that each young person have the possibility of feeling part and useful for this big European people. And it's important if we get this Erasmus generation to live. I think we are all an example of this today. Thank you. Thank you for these words. In a few minutes, we are going to meet with Sabine Verheyen, the European member of Parliament. I would like to quote, in fact, the European Youth Year rapporteur, where it is stated that young people are the architects of their own existence, that they contribute in a positive way to society, they nourish the ambitions of the European Union, and that the youth policy can create a space where young people can seize the opportunities that arise and promote their European values. We will hear Sabine Verheyen by video, and she is going to speak about the European Year for Youth.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to address you today, albeit virtually. I'm convinced that in the light of the French presidency and within the framework of the European Year of Youth, the debate on mobility of young Europeans is an important event to appeal for the empowerment of the youth through exchange projects. Studying abroad contributes to empower young Europeans to improve their communication skills and establish an intercultural dialogue. It helps to learn foreign languages and to foster mutual understanding while creating the spirit of integration for a more inclusive Europe. In May last year, the European Parliament has improved the new Erasmus program. We achieved almost a doubling of the budget and ensured that the program will be more inclusive. As a result of our negotiations, more than 28 billion euro were secured for the period of 2021 to 2027. This budget offers additional support for even more Europeans with limited opportunities, regardless their background, socio-economic context and physical, mental or health condition. In addition to that, the Erasmus focuses on a better and more targeted outreach. We hope that with a clearer communication and targeted advice and assistance, the young Europeans aim to join to the European mobility process could easily do so. The young generation is composed of encouraged leaders of today who deserve their place at the table to shape the policies of tomorrow. Talking about the young generation, I mean, of course, youth organizations, young activists and interest groups, young people with disabilities, rural youth, marginalized minorities and other vulnerable groups. Everyone should have the ability to influence policy making in an equal way. In this context, we should give the utmost importance to strengthening the voice of the young generation. The decision on designating the year 2022 as the European Year of Youth proves our commitment to consider young people's needs in current and future policy making. We want to honor the young generation, which has been heavily impacted by the pandemic, but made proof of resilience and courage. Moreover, young people could mainstream new, unexpected and out-of-the-box ideas and perspectives. To support them, we have to include them in the discussion process of all relevant policies. We should cooperate with them in the field of the green and digital transition, where the young generation is already playing an active role. By giving them the platform to active participation, we will make the European project really happen through debate and equal exchange. As a result, it will help to politically engage young citizens and strengthen the sense of belonging to the European society. I'm sure that a European Year of Youth could make this possible. I'm looking forward to working with you on this matter, and I'm excited to shape this European Year of Youth together with youth.
Thank you very much indeed, Sabine Verheyen, for that
Thank you very much, Sabine Verheyen, for that video message. So now let's move on to the third roundtable session of this conference, entitled A Mobility Which is Better Recognized. To be mobile is a very good thing, but it's important that the skills acquired be recognized. So we have two new video sequences here. We have a good practice that I'd like you to discover, a good practice to identify the soft skills acquired during a trip abroad. This is a tool called Aki app, which is created by the Franco-German Office for Youth in conjunction with the Franco-Quebecois Office for Youth. And I would like to invite you to look at the good practices, and this in the mobility village of the member states and the entities which accompany mobility. And the certificates of recognition such as Europass and Youth Pass are already present. Let's look at this video.
C'est simple, gratuit, c'est rapide, valorisant.
You have subtitles in both French and English.
Et je fais actuellement ma thèse à l'université de Landau en Allemagne.
Je m'appelle Max, je suis d'origine allemande et je fais actuellement un stage à Paris dans une agence de traduction et de marketing.
En 3 mots, pour moi, c'est outils, soutien et potentialité.
Identifier, prendre conscience et valoriser.
Je suis allée sur le site internet sur lequel l'inscription est gratuite et j'ai fait l'auto-évaluation. Ensuite, j'ai reçu un bilan personnalisé qui fait le point sur mes compétences transversales.
Ça m'a permis de prendre conscience de mes compétences transversales. J'ai pu connaître mes forces et mes faiblesses. Par exemple, la confiance en soi. Un autre exemple, ce serait le sens de responsabilité. Et je suis curieux de le refaire à la fin de mon stage pour voir mon évolution.
AkiApp m'a permis de mettre des mots sur des ressentis, sur des expériences vécues. AkiApp m'a aussi permis de prendre conscience que ces ressentis étaient en fait des compétences transversales.
Renseignez-vous.
Voilà, une mobilité mieux.
So, a better recognized mobility with this app. Now we have 4 high school students. Good afternoon. 2 young from Sweden, Mane Lunden Miranda, at the last year high school, Samantha Lindblad, the year before the last year. So you've come here for a full school year in France. We also have a Franco-German duet. We have Louise Lemasson and Joanna Raschke. You are, in fact, in a lycée, and you're spending 6 months in the school of the other in 2 different countries. We also have ministers of education. We have a trio here. We have, in fact, with us,
thank you very much for being with us, and le vice-ministre de l'Éducation de la République tchèque pour les relations européennes et internationales.
For European and international relations and the structural investment funds, Václav Velovský. And in the Sorbonne, we have the French Minister for National Education, Youth and Sports, Jean-Michel Blanquer. You are going to tell us what is the best way to recognize mobility experience and, in fact, to make sure that these mobility experiences become something really accessible by everyone. So I will start with, in fact, Louise and Johanna. You took part in a program called Voltaire of the Franco-German Office for Youth. Louise, you spent 6 months in Lower Saxony and in Germany, and in Johanna's gymnasium. And now, Johanna, you are in France in the lycée. So, in fact, Johanna, you said that taking part in the program was the best decision you took in your life. And Louise, you said it was also the best experience in your life. So we are going to listen to you. So, Johanna, in fact, what pushed you to participate in this program? Because it's quite a challenge, in fact, when you are 16. So leaving for a period of 6 months in another country. Yes, I took part in the Voltaire program despite the COVID, because, in fact, we didn't know when it was going to end, but COVID was everywhere in the world, and it wasn't an obstacle for me. And now I've been here for 5 months, and the fact that COVID is here, it doesn't change much in Germany. COVID is also present, and even if COVID is around, I thought that the experience I was going to go through would be a great one, and I was sure that things would go well anyway. And the arrival of Louise in February was a bit complicated with all the restrictions, but in fact it also went well with the homeschooling. And then when I arrived here, in fact, there wasn't that much COVID in Paris, and the professors were all very nice. Thank you very much. So, Louise, you're back in France since August 2021. What is the impact of mobility on your schooling? When I went to Germany, I went there for 6 months. I wasn't really afraid of leaving. And when I came back, I felt much more, responsible. I had a lot of time to think about myself, everything that was happening. So I developed a self-trust, and the fact of learning a new language, speaking to people. I now feel more comfortable in speaking in front of people. So it was very enriching, very important. So I learned the language, and so I was able to enter an international lycée. So it really helped my German. And I discovered a new culture. I met lots of great people. It went very well, and I'm very, very grateful. So you developed self-confident thanks to the learning of a new language. That's a great thing. I understand that you would recommend this to other students. What advice would you give them? What advice would you give to those people who hesitate? Well, you can't lose anything. You always find friends if you're motivated. It will go well, and you'll draw good experience. So I really enjoyed it. So I can only recommend this sort of mobility. It was really great. And a piece of advice to those who are hesitating? Well, I would recommend the Voltaire program. It's a great experience to learn French, living in France, and it's very interesting to live in an unknown country with an unknown language. And you meet new people, you discover new things. So I would really recommend this experience to everyone. Well, thank you both. And now Samantha, Lindblad, and Manus are here with the Swedish program 1 year in France. So there's a school partnership between France and Sweden. So Manny, Lunden, Miranda, I saw you spoke 4 languages. And you're a goalkeeper, in fact, and have been since the age of 12.
Portraits that you would like to come back to France for your higher education studies. Alors, vous avez osé la mobilité comme Louise et Johanna. Alors, pour commencer avec vous, Mané.
So, Mané, how were you welcomed in France, in your host family, in your school, and in the local community? I came to France in August. I was welcomed in a host family, and I must say I was very happy in that host family. Now, at school, it was more difficult. I didn't know anyone, but I had to be very social, open to others. So, and it helped me make new friends. I have lots of new friends now, and that's also very nice. Now I can enter the French society more easily. The teachers help me a lot, especially with the grammar, and they help me learn more about French culture. Now, with football, I play football, so yeah, this is another way to, enter a society. You meet people, and you didn't know them, but it really helps you, get into that world. Yeah, sports is good to bring together the different people.
What does this experience bring to you personally?
I would say that in Sweden we have a lot of personal freedom and our own responsibility in school, which has positive aspects, but it can also be negative. When it comes to France, however, I've experienced a more rigorous way of studying that I definitely will take back home with me. Also, this last month has given me more self-confidence, and I also learned more about myself. And most important of all, I improved my French, which is the main goal coming here to France, of course. And I met new people that has become a huge part of my life. All my friends here, all the teachers, and of course the amazing family I live with that has become like my second home, which I'm really grateful for. This experience has changed my life and has made me think about coming back to France for my higher studies in economics in the future. And for example, being here today is a great opportunity I had no idea I would experience.
Well, what advice would both of you give to young people who are maybe still hesitating to take the step and to become mobile? Mani?
My advice for young people who are hesitating to cross borders in the world and Europe is that it's going to be an adventure for you who comes to a new country to learn new cultures and find new people who you maybe shouldn't found if you stayed at home. And it's something that's going to see the world different when you learn new cultures, and yeah.
And you?
I would say that a year in France will give you experiences for life, even though you will meet a lot of challenges, of course, with the language and everything else that is new. My advice would be to just be yourself, be open to meet new people, take the leap and just do it. Come to France.
Okay, there we are. Mobility and also self-confidence, as you said. I'd like to hand over now to Minister Lina Axelsson Kibbo, Minister for Schools in Sweden. As you've heard, we've had here 4 young people, 2 Swedish, and they all dared to be mobile. In 1 year's time, exactly, it'll be your turn, the Swedish presidency of the EU Council. It'd be interesting to have your thoughts, maybe, so Mr. Blanquer can hear them, on mobility programs, reciprocity and recognition. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah, very good. I'm very happy. Dear ministers, distinguished colleagues, dear EU friends, ladies and gentlemen, this subject is very close to my heart. Je fais un an à Strasbourg. Ich habe auch ein Jahr in Deutschland gemacht. Y también he hecho un año en España. He hecho el tercero debut en España. Pero eso era el año 88. Free movement is a fundamental principle of the European cooperation, one we must safeguard and value. Cooperation across our borders is important, not at least when it comes to education. It is a priority for the Swedish government that EU citizens can study, work and travel and exchange ideas without administrative or bureaucratic obstacles. These 4 young students are good examples and excellent ambassadors of how valuable mobility is, how beneficial it is for a young person to spend a period abroad, take part of another country's culture and mindset, and not at least improve their language skills. This has also been confirmed in recent studies showing that Swedish pupils spending a year in France also perceive the 1 year as a step forward in the development of their personality, exactly what these students told us now. The 2 Swedish students, Samantha and Manna, are taking part in the French-Swedish cooperation 1 year in France. Since 1988, the year I went to Spain, more than 500 Swedish upper secondary schools pupils have been given the opportunity to study for 1 year in a school in France. Most pupils resume their 3-year cycle of upper secondary school when they come back home, but some of these choose to take the international certificate DELF or the French high school diploma, le baccalauréat. These are many things that we can do together within education while respecting the principle of subsidiarity. We must use the fact that we have different experiences and systems, and that this provides us with a lot of possibilities to learn from each other. I'm deeply convinced that mobility, and especially mobility of students, is a key to creating a European identity and to build understanding. Besides including groups like upper secondary students in academic programs, we must also make sure students with fewer opportunities can take part. It should not be matter whether you come from, where you come from, your gender, your parents' incomes, or occupation. I see great potential in future cooperation on mutual recognition. Of course, of courses and education programs from upper secondary level and upwards. The preconditions for mutual recognition vary between different education levels, and these are spaces where it's room for further improvement. In Sweden, we have had an inquiry, the validation delegation, working for a couple of years to develop various proposals for a coherent national and permanent system for validation. The long-term goal is to accomplish transparent, efficient, and sustainable structures for validation at regional and national level that can cover both educational and working life. The government of offices is currently processing the delegation's proposal and, among other things, an obligation for municipality to offer validation will be introduced. Let me end with a few words about teachers, since they are the key to many of the ambitions that I just outlined. Teachers and trainers engaged in mobility act as multipliers and can easily mobility among pupils and students. Exchanges between our member states should be made easily accessible. If we get this right, many of other positive developments will follow as well. I'm very happy to be able to speak here today, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate and share my views on this very, very important topic. Thank you very much.
Tack så mycket. I think that's how you say thank you in Swedish. Thank you very much indeed, Minister for Schools. We're delighted to have you with us. So let's hand over now to Minister Václav Velchovský in the Czech Republic. I think you have a similar mobility program to the one we've just been hearing about in Sweden. You will be taking over from France the presidency on the 1st of July this year. Tell us a little bit about the strategy you'll be using at home, and can we have your ideas on how to create more mobility in Europe and more recognition? Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Greetings from Prague. And before I answer your question, we have prepared a video which shows how the mobility may change your life. So if I may ask the direction of this conference to have the video first, just 1 minute, I think the picture is more than 100 of words, as a proverb in the Czech says. So please, if I may ask you to start with the video.
Nous avons fait une petite expérience. Nous avons relié 2 écoles distantes 2000 km par téléprésence. Installé les caméras cachées et nous avons
made an experiment. Hidden cameras.
Le premier jour, les élèves essaient de savoir s'il
So hidden cameras. The first day, people look at the screen and they're trying to.
Finalement, l'un d'entre eux comprendra comment communiquer.
Finally, one of them will understand how to communicate. On the 4th day, they prepare speeches, homework, and a little bit later, the professors will understand the principle as well. Our portal started connecting people among themselves. After 2 weeks, they learn the language, the customs, and they are able to seize opportunities. After a few weeks, they consider the students on the other side as their school comrades. And given that we have, when we ended the experience, something happened that we didn't expect. When you have the desire to see someone every day, a picture will never be enough. So discover the world in real. Erasmus Plus.
Thank you very much. So it was a short video. I hope or maybe we had some connection problems, so I hope that you have enjoyed it, because it's a really true story and true project which happened between Czech and French school. And it shows that the love and the relationship may be positively influenced by the mobility. And I think this is a byproduct of the mobilities I think we have all enjoyed. So let me please answer your question. So, yes, so the one thing are the positive impacts. Of course, the negative and the obstacles are made by the legislation barriers or the barriers between the universities and the recognition of the subjects that students are having abroad. And I may tell you that Ministry of Education and Sports of the Czech Republic has prepared the amendment to the Higher Education Act, which should enable students to have a really true recognition between the studies abroad and by their home university. So I hope that this amendment will really help this recognition and will lead to overcome the obstacles which all member states identify. Let me mention some positive projects in the Czech Republic. I would mention, for example, the search engine. This is the project which we are having together with Italy, Latvia, and Netherlands. And what it is about, it aims to increasing the awareness of automatic mutual recognition and qualification at upper secondary and higher education level, which, as I have said, is very important for us. So overall, and this is a nice number as well, there were more than 99,000 outgoing and 107,000 incoming mobilities in higher education in the Czech Republic, which is a very, very nice number. You may see that we are more attracting country. Yeah, so 99,000, vice versa, 107,000. And it was between 2014 and 2019. So we look forward for the next Erasmus period, how the numbers will change. And what is as well very important, mainly when we negotiate with the Ministry of Finance, because all is about the money when we are talking about the state administration. So our argument is that these mobilities, which I have already mentioned, brings to the state budget and to the state economy more than 88 million euros a year. 88 million euros. So it is a very important economic impact as well when a student comes to the hosting country. And let me please mention another example, because we do not have only Erasmus program, but we have as well one mobility program which is very, very old, which started in 1957, and it is the mobility program of summer schools of Slavonic studies. And we provide a specific scholarship for the students which studies Czech language or Slavonic languages, but not only students, but as well the academics, for example, to come to the Czech Republic and to know better the language and to learn the culture as well. So this is a long, long program. And in the last 15 years, we have more than 4,000 participants, which I think it's very, very nice number when you realize how complicated the Czech language is. So
thank you.
Thank you for having this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was a very interesting experience. Thank you very much to both our ministers for having participated in our programme today. Monsieur le ministre, vous avez donc la parole maintenant pour la France et la présidence.
Minister, you now have the floor for France and the French presidency of the European Union with regards to the concrete actions that exist with regards to these European pathways. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for their intervention. We can see the richness of what already exists. So I think that this is extremely important for the new steps. I think it's important to underline what was said by Maria Gabriel and the Member of Parliament as well with regards to the doubling of the Erasmus budget. There's not just the budget, but there's also the objective that 15% of the budget be for the school level and the rest for higher education. And so this is just as important as the budget. At the European level, in 2022, we would like to reach some 22,000 students, and this is just the beginning, and we hope that this will continue to increase in the following years. So thank you to the European Commission, to the European Parliament, to the European institutions in general for having organized this. And we also thank the member states for all of the bilateral initiatives that exist. It was interesting to note what our Czech colleague has just presented, which was an extraordinary example of creativity. And then there are a lot of tools that have been used. You have the Aki app for the recognition of skills and competence acquired. If we recognize those competences, those skills, we will encourage mobility. Now, in terms of the recognition of mobility, earlier I spoke of the mobility of the vocational schools. And you know that we have the European Member of Parliament, Ilana Securel, who has spoken of this. You know that in the framework of the French presidency of the European Union, we want to go further with this mobility because now we want to reach out to the students in a vocational education high schools, but we want to also reach out to the technical students as well. In other words, we would like to have recognition of the time studied in another school and when an evaluation is done by the partner country and school. So as of next year, we will start with students who are 15 who will be able to go in Europe to a partner school, and their school education will be taken into account in their scholarship, in their school pathway. So also a mobility of 4 weeks in a partner school. We will have a mobility option, and this will be worth a coefficient of 2 in our national baccalaureate as recognition of this experience. And I was interested in hearing what the Czech and Swedish colleagues have said, because these are two countries with which we are in very close cooperation within the framework of this French presidency. Thank you very much. I think that your words have been heard here. Minister, we're going to join the Commissioner on the other plateau, and we thank all of the countries who have shown us how mobile they are. Let's look at the video. So, as you can see, this is in all of the languages, and thank you to Bulgaria, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Spain, Ireland, Italy, getting Europe moving. For the Netherlands, thank you to Portugal, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Sweden, Germany, Austria, Romania, Hungary, Slovenia, and Greece. So this was in all of the languages, proof that the languages are something that is quite extraordinary, something which allows everyone to dare and to become self-confident. So we are still here with Commissioner Maria Gabriel. You are live with us here. I would like to give you the floor for your conclusion. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex, Minister, Jean-Michel. I must say I'm really delighted to have heard all of the messages we have heard here, and we have all observed that the mobility opportunities can change someone's life, especially for those who live this for the first time. So in conclusion to this conference, I would like to perhaps come back briefly to the questions here regarding our strategic strategic vision of mobility. That is to say, to make mobility accessible to everyone and allow for the recognition. Today, we've looked at all of the positive effects from the systemic point of view, of course, but as the Commission, we share France's desire to encourage mobility and to ensure that it worked for everyone. I think that this message was necessary and clear. It's essential that this mobility be enlarged to encompass everyone. I must say I was very happy to hear the commitment messages of the Czech minister and the Swedish minister. And today, Minister Blanquer has quite rightly said that the opening of this mobility experience has to be accompanied by continued work to improve the mutual recognition procedures of the skills and competences acquired abroad. That recognition is also essential in order to set up the European education space by 2025. And this on the basis for example, the automatic recognition of diplomas and study results abroad. We heard of the strong initiatives that France would like to put forward. As a Commission, yes, we are very much involved in trying to implement the advice of the Council concerning the mutual recognition of qualifications. Remember, in October 2018, we saw this, but I think that today still considerable efforts have to be made in two-thirds of the member states. And here I'd like to pay tribute to the commitment of France, which is one of the pioneers in the group moving for the adoption of this recognition. So I think the last message would be to speak of cooperation and the need to work together, because if we want to have that automatic recognition, then we must work together. We must in fact encourage that commitment of the member states' educational systems. And obviously, when we talk about higher education, for example, then we can look at the transparency tools that exist with regards to diplomas and quality assurance. Here, maybe I could launch an appeal to what will continue in the Commission with regards to the appeal by the Erasmus Plus to the training centers for academic recognition, with a main objective for support of that automatic recognition. Here, I'd like to refer to the recognition of the which is one of the objectives of the Youth Pass, which is a non-formal apprenticeship and learning point. You know, since 2007, some more than 1,100,000 such certificates have been adopted. We have presented our wish to have recognition, and this with regards to volunteer work at the European level, stressing the words inclusion and equality, and this under the impetus of the French presidency. So, in conclusion, I would like to share a very strong message, and that is that 2022 is the year of youth. It's an ideal moment to promote mobility, to help young people enjoy this experience of mobility. And I think this is probably very important for the next generation EU recovery plan. Now, in addition to that, we obviously support a European framework for mobility, of which one of the objectives would be to make mobility part of the learning process, one of the integral parts of the educational system in Europe. And with all of the parties, we're going to start working on this. We would like to submit this to the Council in 2023. Obviously, we count a great deal on the impetus given by the French presidency, the commitment of the Swedish and Czech ministers. Here we want to reinforce mobility for learning and apprenticeship in all of the areas of education and training. I think that today we are all here together around one cause to try to eliminate the obstacles to mobility. We want to offer greater inclusion, greater accessibility, and in this way, in fact, contribute to the achievement achievement of our policies, the realization of the green and digital transition. And what's also important is that with regards to the future, we want to prepare our educational system to be able to resist crises like that of the pandemic, which probably will not be the last crisis we encounter. So once again, I would like to thank you. I think that today we have an excellent sharing of experiences. We've heard some very strong ideas. We've also had the ability to see a vision for the generation, for the future. And this is something which once again allows us to reaffirm our will to work together. So I'd like to set an appointment with you soon to once again work on mobility in Europe. And I thank warmly Minister Blanquer, dear Jean-Michel, this conference was necessary. It was important that we hold it at the beginning of 2022, the European Year for Youth and the 35th anniversary of the Erasmus program. And I think that we have seen this youth participate here today. What a great beginning to this year and to our future. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Maria Gabriel. Perhaps a few words of conclusion, Minister? Well, I would like to thank all of you for what has taken place here. As Maria Gabriel has said, we have a live illustration of what we are speaking of with the testimony of the students present here. We've seen the different mobility programs in Europe, our colleagues here, all of this for a concrete mobility, an experience that be concrete, practical, and that it involves a maximum of young people in Europe. You know, that today we find ourselves in an excellent, very favorable position from the budget point of view because of the decisions that have been adopted and the measures, as Marie-Gabrielle has said. I also would like to show the very close links we have with the Czech Republic and Sweden for this new cycle of mobility in Europe. As Maria Gabrielle has said, this new cycle is one which has great potential power, with more young people circulating in Europe, with young people from schools. I said 22,000 such school students. For this process, we must launch it. We must launch this process to start. You know that, in fact, the meeting in Bologna allowed for the recognition between European universities. This is why Erasmus is working well today with the Sorbonne process, with all of our European friends, and more particularly our Swedish and Czech friends. We can work to achieve the veritable recognition of these school pathways for the young students that will be opting for this mobility. It has to also ensure that there is an active recognition of the mobility, and by knowing what is being done by our neighbors, we can achieve greater convergence, whether it be for vocational, professional training, or just standard training. All this so as to be able to build the Europe of tomorrow. I think that this is it's true that the natural context is not overly favorable because of COVID, but I think the longer term context is favorable. It depends on us. The way is open, and I think that today is an important step in that direction. So thank you to all of you to continue this process. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for being with someone who dared mobility some time ago. It's great. So we're going to conclude with a video of a lot of young European people who opted for mobility. Thank you for your attention. And goodbye.
J'ai osé la mobilité.
Let's get moving.
J'ai osé la mobilité.
Europa se mueve.
Let's get moving.
Let's get Europe moving.
Let's get moving.
J'ai osé la mobilité. J'ai osé la mobilité.
Let's get moving or j'ai osé la mobilité.
Europa se mueve. J'ai osé la mobilité, vous pouvez le faire aussi.